The Boy and the Heron marks the 24th Studio Ghibli film, so today, let's rank them all from worst to best. Hey everybody, my name's Justin here. I try to watch everything that hits theaters and on streaming services. If you guys are like me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell notification for more up and coming content. Leave your list down below. How would you rank all 24 Studio Ghibli films, or Studio Ghibli, however you want to call it? Let me know in the comment section down below. What is your favorite one and what is your least favorite one? There's really no worst movie, because even at the bottom of the list, it's still slightly entertaining and good to watch. So it's hard to say from worst to best, from least best to best, because this is one of the best, if not the best, animated studio of all time. There are some amazing films on this list. Coming in at number 24 is Earwig and the Witch. This was a very different film for Studio Ghibli, as it broke away from its traditional style of animation and brought in 3D style, and it really did not work. It was a gamble for them, and you could see the character designs and some story elements that did work for typical Studio Ghibli, but it was a really lackluster movie. There wasn't anything exciting about this orphan who went to go live with this witch. There was some nice music throughout, but there wasn't enough development to actually make me care about this character's journey and her discovering things about herself as well. So there's just a really lackluster tone to this movie that makes it really hard to watch. And then also on top of that, it's really distracting when you go from all the movies that they've done. Only two of them have been really different, but then you go to this movie and it just feels completely off. Coming in at number 23 is Tales from Earthsea. I would say Tales from Earthsea is probably the most disappointing Studio Ghibli film, as it has the right elements, a magical world, and got big dragons in here, enough lore to make it worth watching, but it's a dud. It's a film that doesn't really take advantage of its nice story. It doesn't take advantage of all these thrilling moments that could be within this movie. Instead, it focuses on character relationships that really amount to nothing within this film and don't add anything exciting or memorable about this movie. So right off the bat, I felt this magical tone to this movie and the lore behind it and introducing these dragons. And then it just halted and had this really slow pace to it, and then tried to introduce all the dragon elements towards the end of the movie. And by the end of it all, I really did not care much about it. So Tales from Earthsea, despite having a decent story and some nice animation, it is a boring film and one of the most disappointing ones in their filmography. Coming in at number 22 is Ocean Waves. This was released in the 90s, and it was more of an experimental film, as interns were involved on making this movie, and you do see some nice elements to it. Deep story about what Studio Ghibli does so well is characters reflecting on their past and looking at youth and growing up and deep messages. That's here, but on a very surface level. It doesn't really go in depth with it all. You have the introduction of it, all the characters that are reflecting on their past, character relationships that develop throughout the film. It's all fine, but nowhere as deep as other movies that did it much better. So Ocean Waves, despite looking good and having the right story, it doesn't go fully in depth with it and make it emotional to watch, or maybe make you reflect on your own life as you watch this movie. It's just kind of bare bones at best. Coming in at number 21 is From Up on Poppy Hill. I view this film kind of similar to Ocean Waves. It has the nice story to it about youth and love and growing up, set within a more dramatic setting. And the film does a fine job of introducing all of that, these characters that are trying to save their clubhouse, and there are some history between certain characters that really could shake up relationships and challenge it, but it doesn't go fully in depth with it all. Kind of similar to Ocean Waves. It's just got this surface level story. You're fine telling your story about these characters, not fully going in too deep, not giving a lot of deep emotions behind it all. It looks amazing. It's one of their more, not most recent, but was released, I think, 2012, 2013. But it is a film that has the potential, has the nice elements to it that works for a Studio Ghibli movie. I just wanted more from it. I wanted to explore more of these characters as they learn more about themselves and try to protect their clubhouse, there's a certain moment where you look at these characters and it really could add more depth to them, but we just didn't get that. You just kind of like brushed it off and then moved on with it. And that's probably one of the weakest parts too from Up on Poppy Hill, is how it gives us the right key points to the story, but doesn't really expand on it with detail. Coming in number 20 is The Cat Returns. This is a spin-off to the film Whisper of the Heart, which I absolutely love. The Cat Returns, not so much. It's just a really average film. It's got some fun magical moments with cats that's absolutely adorable. If you love cats like myself, you're gonna find some exciting moments within this movie. But the film is not really that thrilling or entertaining as you start to explore more of this magical world and the cats involved with it. It tries to take too much on with its story. It doesn't really fully develop it all. It doesn't hit as well as Whisper of the Heart, but at least it's got cats, and that's very adorable. But the whole story itself is just kind of average, and doesn't really do much for me. It's one of those movies that I just watch, and there's moments that I like, but I just can't express too much about it and how much I absolutely love it or hate it. It's just kind of there, and that's just the best way I can describe The Cat Returns. Coming in at number 19 is When Marnie Was There. This is a deep Studio Ghibli film. It touches upon adolescence and loneliness and family history and legacy and all of that, which has been known for Studio Ghibli movies throughout the years. And I think When Marnie Was There did it very nicely. At times, it's a very somber, very quiet movie. You do see the highlights of the story when Marnie was there, when she's involved in the story. It brings out the more emotional side to the story and deeper connection between our two main characters. And it's got a very touching end to the movie that makes you kind of think about the whole entire film. It's very thought-provoking, but the deeper themes about love and adolescence and loneliness is nicely handled within this movie. Pair that with some beautiful animation and a story that develops nicely, a relationship that develops nicely throughout the film. It becomes sweeter as the movie goes along. It starts off really quiet and somber in the beginning of the movie, and then it just kind of grows, and you see this character opening up more, and you get to connect with this character more. And that's what I love about this movie. It's a very quiet film. It's not as deeper as other movies or exciting as other movies or thrilling, but it's got that nice approach to the story and its development for its characters. A lot of care for them and seeing them grow. It's a natural development that you care and you appreciate along the way. Coming in at number 18 is My Neighbors the Yamadas. This is a very different style for Studio Ghibli, a more like watercolor painting, as we see this family just do average family stuff. And there's not a really big plot within this movie. More of a mixture of just shorts about this family doing average things. And that's what makes this film fun to watch, is just a slice of average life and amongst a bunch of films that have magical worlds and creatures and environmental issues and deep themes. My Neighbors the Yamadas is very simple. It's a film that just focuses on family. You get to see a connection between these characters, realistic moments of characters arguing with each other or loving and just doing odd things. Upon the story, how simple it is, the animation also is very simple, and you appreciate a different take on what they have done before. Coming in number 17 is Only Yesterday. This is very similar to Ocean Waves. It was released in the 90s, a pretty forgotten Studio Ghibli movie, but I love how this movie just kind of wrapped up in its development and its development along the way. It's very similar to Ocean Waves in terms of its story, characters reflecting on their past and where they are now, but it does it in a much deeper way, in a way that you connect with these characters and you feel all the emotions at the end as they are thinking about their lives, how they grew up, and how they yearn for any part of their life to be like their youth. There's a lot of nostalgia for these characters as they describe certain things that had happened to them and how it has affected who they are now. You get to see the more emotional moments to it. You get to feel that personality to this movie, and it works so well. It moves in a nice pace to where at the end you spend a lot of time with one character as she's describing her life, and that is where you just kind of feel all that emotion to this movie, and it works so well and wraps up very nicely. It is a movie that has a nice kind of balance between its animation from the past when this girl was younger, and it's different from when she is older. So the differences between the two styles gives it that distinct look, and I really like that about this movie. Coming in at number 16 is The Secret World of Arrietty. This was the first Studio Ghibli film I saw in theaters, and I was so excited for this movie because I watched a lot of their movies leading up to The Secret World of Arrietty. And it's a fun story, a very different story for Studio Ghibli. You have characters that are very small, and they live in these houses, and you can see that there is some potential for some deeper themes, some emotional moments that kind of should like pull at your heartstrings. When Arrietty meets this young boy who's very sick, you could tell that there could be some emotional moments for it, but they really don't pull that off fully. It's exciting to see the world that they live in and how they borrow from humans and how they use sugar cubes and go into their houses at night. That's all very exciting. So just exploring Arrietty's world is enough for it being a little bit higher on the list, despite a story that kind of isn't full. It's not that thrilling, and there's a pretty simple story of just Arrietty in this house, and then you have this sick boy, and then person that he lives with is trying to expose her family. Coming in number 15 is Pom Poko. This was odd. It's been a few years since I've seen Pom Poko, so I forgot how bizarre this movie is. It gets weirder and weirder as the movie goes along. You have raccoons that are doing odd things with their bodies, and they help them fly. It really embraces its bizarre themes within this movie, but it touches upon environmental issues and groups of these raccoons and protecting animals as well. It does in a really sweet way. These are characters that you find exciting. The narration also provides a lot of in-depth look at the way these raccoons live and how they are integrating themselves into the humans as they can transform. You just learn so much about these raccoons, not only through the story within Pom Poko, but also the narration as well. I found it to be all very, very interesting. Coming in at number 14 is The Tale of the Princess Kagia. This is a film that I've only seen a couple times, and I've heard many great things about it. The animation is very similar to My Neighbors the Yamadas, but more in detail. And this is a story about a princess that is born from a flower, and as she grows throughout the movie, people make fun of her. She starts to challenge the ideas and the roles that she has to play, and it's a very strong character. You really are invested in her journey and how she is standing up for herself and challenging what it means to be a princess, and how people tell her you have to do this and you have to marry this person. She doesn't agree with all of that, and she really starts to switch it up and starts to challenge all of the minor characters in the movie. What I wasn't fully expecting is the gut-wrenching emotional end to this movie, and it's a character that you start to feel more connected with. You start to connect with her family as well, and then it just kind of rips it away from you, and it's so emotional and so hard to watch. It makes it for such a great Studio Ghibli film. Coming in at number 13 is The Wind Rises. This is the second Studio Ghibli film I saw in theaters. I've actually only seen 2 Studio Ghibli films in theaters, and this was a really good movie. I think the whole story about this young man who's devoted to designing airplanes and working on them and showing his strong motivation and his love for all of that is very solid in this movie, and seeing all the dreams that he has just kind of pushes this character forward. Then you have the love story behind it all that does work, but I think it comes too late within the movie and isn't fully developed or given us those emotional ones, because it is there. It does work, and I think it has the right elements to it, and seeing the love that he has for his wife, and she is sick, it does lead to some moments that challenge this young man, but I wanted more emotion behind it. I think if the movie would have been a little bit longer, or it was introduced earlier in the film, I would have felt more of that impact. Coming in at number 12 is The Boy and the Heron, the newest Studio Ghibli film directed by Hayao Miyazaki. This was a good movie. It started off very simple. and I wasn't sure where they were going to go with all this magical world. But we saw a story about a young boy who was dealing with the loss of his mother. Once we get to this magical world, it starts to benefit this young character as we see this Heron who tells him that your mother's still alive, and he jumps at the chance to see if that's true or not, and it leads us to a bunch of magical worlds and odd creatures, which Hayao Miyazaki has done many times before. So the animation is very exciting and very similar to other Studio Ghibli movies, very creative. In the story, I found myself more connected as it went along, seeing this young boy as he adapting to this new life, and then connecting with his new mother as well. There's some deep themes about your family's legacy and love and loss that Hayao Miyazaki and all of Studio Ghibli has done so well many times. So I was really impressed with this movie and some of the odd moments that Hayao Miyazaki brought forth, but also some of the deeper themes just paid off, and it was a very emotional movie. Coming at number 11 is Whisper of the Heart. This is such a beautiful movie that has always stuck with me. It's one of the few Studio Ghibli movies I just think over and over again after I watch it. There's so much that stick with you about this young girl and her wanting to write her own stories. But at its core, it's a romance story as well, a coming of age story, as we see this young girl who checks out a book and sees that the same name is on many of the books, so she has this desire to meet this person. And when she meets this person, it's not who she fully expected, but we see a relationship develop, but also her motivation to write stories as well. And then also how society where she lives has certain ideas for her, and she's starting to challenge that. But also she has to look at herself and how she can build this career off of writing. Very sweet, simple moments, but also developing a relationship, romance story, a coming of age story that works so well for this movie. Rounding out my top 10 is Grave of the Fireflies, the most emotional, hard to watch, realistic movie that Studio Ghibli has done. It is a film that's short, less than an hour and a half, but it gets straight to the point and does not hold back on the realistic moments of war and how it affects people. And you have this older brother and his younger sister, and how they were searching for their mother and what happened to her. It's gut-wrenching. It's hard to watch. It is a film that does not hold back on showcasing how war has shaped people's lives and affected them and just brought absolute pain. And there are so many moments that you just cry throughout. The animation showing the brutality, showing the destruction, showing blood and bodies. It is a film that is so vastly different from what they have done before, but is easily one of the best animated movies and the most emotional, personal, and realistic movie that I have seen. It's a film that I don't like to revisit often, but I do when I do these ranking videos and I want to talk about it. But it is a film that is so hard to watch, but I do not want to watch over and over again. Where you got Totoro and Ponyo and Kiki's Delivery Service that is so fun to watch, and I want to watch them all again and again. Grave of the Fireflies is not that movie. Coming in at number 9 is Ponyo. I love the story of Ponyo and how it is the Little Mermaid story, but it is such a sweet story, seeing this little fish, Ponyo, and how she meets a young boy and develops this relationship. It's very exciting. It's got a very quick pace to it because Ponyo is a character that is always going. It's a character that's constantly moving and is just very energetic. And so is the story. It just moves at such a quick pace. A very simple story about her father as trying to find her to bring her back, but also has to kind of accept changes for his daughter. Score is amazing in here. There's so many exciting, thrilling moments with the ocean that is coming onto land, and Ponyo is growing throughout this film, and how she wants human food, and how this young boy is so excited to take care of her. It's a very loving story. Not a super deep one as well, but it works for it being simple, and how young kids can enjoy this and adults can enjoy it as well. Coming in number 8 is Howl's Moving Castle. Howl's Moving Castle is a very popular Studio Ghibli movie, seeing this young girl that's cursed by this witch, Sophie, and she now becomes this older person, and she meets Howl in his moving castle and this fire and this young boy, and seeing how she just kind of adapts to their world and learns so much about it and starts to care for Howl. It's kind of nice progression to it. A character that you start to love. Howl, you start to understand some of his trauma and what he's going through, and seeing how they connect. That's all very exciting stuff. But also the moving castle and how large it is. You want to explore the ins and outs of it. That's done in a very proper way as well. But then you start to look at the witch and how she contributes to the story as well. It's all told in a very meaningful way, but also develops this relationship between Sophie and Howl that becomes endearing and romantic as well. I really liked Howl's Moving Castle for the magical feel to it, the simplicity for the characters, this young woman who turns into this older person, and Howl's a character you just don't fully understand. You get to learn a lot about him. That is all great within this movie. Coming in at number 7 is Porco Rosso. This is a character that very quiet, but you get to understand fully throughout the movie. From where we got Porco Rosso in the beginning of the movie, and kind of just keeps to himself, very quiet, and then he takes on this apprentice, and he starts to make this transition into a character that becomes more outspoken, protective of this young girl, and I love that growth for this character. All within some really thrilling aerial moments, airplane battles that provides for some thrilling action within this movie. When you look at all the kind of Studio Ghibli movies, you got the magical worlds that they explore, the ones about youth and reflecting on your past, but then you got Porco Rosso, who's it's more of an action movie. Coming in number 6 is Castle in the Sky. This is a film that nicely balances some thrilling moments and some sweet moments, as well as we have this young girl who has the stone and a lot of people are trying to obtain it. Then you have this talk of this castle in the sky that people are trying to find, and she's connected to all of that. There's a lot of urgency surrounding this moment. There's a lot of urgency surrounding her story, but we get to see this character. We get to see these two young kids that grow throughout this movie. And it's a film that, you know, the certain talks about the castle really build up that reveal of the castle. And when you get that castle in the sky, it's all exciting. And characters that kind of shift throughout this movie, the stone that people are trying to find, there are some intense scenes throughout. And then you have just kind of that nice transition to the castle, and you have those magical moments. It's all really good. It's a film that balances so much love and care for the characters, and then some thrilling moments and urgency as well. It's a story that does so much, but does it in a proper way, and none of it feels like it's weak or underdeveloped. It's all done in a way that benefits the story of the castle and the talk of it all, and just kind of just building all up to that. It's a great payoff. Coming in number 5 is Kiki's Delivery Service. This is a very simple story about a young girl who has to travel away when she gets a certain age, and she has to live in a new town. And there she takes it upon herself to have a delivery service. And throughout this movie, she meets new characters. She gets to be part of a new town. She develops relationships, and she starts to realize things about herself. That's all things that Studio Ghibli has done so well. But it's got a beautiful score and such a likable character in Kiki. She is a character that is learning so much. We're along for the journey, so you have that nice development for Kiki as she grows throughout this movie. It's not a character that's stuck in one place. It's a character that grows constantly throughout this movie. It's a film that's so simple but so effective in its messages and its story and its characters. It's very memorable. It's beautiful. The animation is so good. The score is very catchy. Gigi and Kiki, some of the best, most iconic Studio Ghibli films. I don't know. I just love Kiki's Delivery Service so much for its really calm tone, and just watching her deliver things. I could do it all day. This is the character that I want to spend so much time with. Coming in at number 4 is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Although this is technically not a Studio Ghibli film and it is made before the creation of this company, It is a film that is often put in a list of Studio Ghibli films as they went on to create Studio Ghibli after this movie. The elements that Miyazaki has injected into his films is shown here. The aerial moments, environmental message, and a strong character. Nausicaa is a very beloved character that stands for her beliefs. She wants to protect people and animals, within that insects. We see this environmental message about having this balance between humans and animals, these insects, these big creatures that roam the land and have a purpose. She is trying to convince people of all of that. But after a war that left the world toxic, Nausicaa tries to protect her valley and the people within it. When an army threatens the way of living, it brings out the characteristics that I love about Nausicaa. She tries to make people understand what needs to be done. The animation is truly beautiful. A lot of quiet moments providing a lot of detail. The bigger action scenes providing a lot of swift animation to it. It's a good film. It's a movie that I just love to watch. It's a movie that builds on its story and its environmental message, exploring these big insects in the world that she's lived in and how a war has left it toxic and how people fear everything. And she has to create this balance and try to get everybody to understand all of that. It's all mixed in for a really good movie. Coming in at number 3 is Princess Mononoke. This is a film that's very much like Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. You have your environmental message, you have your protection of animals, a strong character, but it is a bloody film. This is probably, besides Grave of the Fireflies, for its obvious reasons, one of the more graphic movies. And a film that when I was going through all the Studio Ghibli movies with my daughter, this is the one that I held back from showing her, as well as Grave of the Fireflies. It's got a lot of action-packed moments, bloody sequences when it comes to some of the animals within it, but the message is very strong in here, much like Nausicaa, but I feel like it's done in a more meaningful, deeper way for our characters. A young boy that has protected some people, and they want to fight off against Princess Mononoke and the wolves within this film. It just builds on top of each other, its story, this nice transition going from our characters in the beginning and what they kind of stand for, and then once they learn about what is happening and how things need to be protected, those characters start to form these beliefs, and characters start to form groups, relationships, and that is where those deeper themes come out. Princess Mononoke is action-packed, it is gory, it's really good with its story and its themes, and very likable characters that they don't waste any detail or development with. They make sure that these characters stand out, they stand up for what they believe in, and they provide for those messages and those deeper themes throughout. Princess Mononoke is one that I've heard people talk many times about, and it's one of the best Studio Ghibli films, but it took me some years to really appreciate this movie, and now as many rewatches that I have given it, it stands as one of the best animated films and one of the best Studio Ghibli movies as well. Coming in second place is Spirited Away. Probably the most iconic Studio Ghibli film besides My Neighbor Totoro. This is a film that won Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. It's a film that people just kind of think about when... This is a film that people associate with Studio Ghibli, as it's a movie that fully realizes this magical world that Hayao Miyazaki has created. You got your character in the beginning that is introduced to this magical world, and she starts to explore it all, the ins and outs to it. It's a world that has so much, has great world building to it. The different creatures that we come across, some characters that you want to know more about, some characters that just kind of come and go. But we spend so much time within this world. It kind of reminds me of Alice in Wonderland. We have some whimsical moments, some darker moments, some moments that start to challenge this young girl, and she has to get back to her own world where her father and mother have turned into pigs. So she has a task at hand. There's urgency there, and she has to solve all of that. But we have time to explore this world, have time to introduce these characters, these odd characters, and how they affect this young girl's life, and kind of this roadblock for her as well. The animation is beautiful. It goes into these really detailed moments of exploring these creatures, and showcasing some very detailed moments of some transition as well. There's so many swift, very detailed moments that I really love. But coming in at number 1 is My Neighbor Totoro. This is my personal favorite Studio Ghibli film for many reasons. That it is a simple story, but what it does in this movie is so effective. What Totoro represents in this movie of these 2 young girls who are dealing with their mother being in the hospital, and how their youth kind of being taken away from them, and they have all these emotions that they don't know how to fully comprehend, and Totoro is there to kind of bring out the happiness of them, where a lot of the darker moments, the moments of sadness and not fully understanding what is happening, and then Totoro is there to kind of provide some thrilling, exciting moments for these young girls, almost like a distraction. But there's really no big plot to it. There's a very simple story of these young girls meeting this very lovable, cuddly character, Totoro, how he comes into their lives and what he represents. It's so effective with its messages and its themes and how it builds off of it. Its simplicity, its score, its animation, it's iconic. It's beautiful to look at. These are characters that I want to see their journey, and seeing how they react to their mother still in the hospital, how the young girl doesn't really understand what is happening, and her older sister has to be there to kind of hold her hand and talk to her about everything. It's very realistic. Despite having this magical creature within it, the whole story is very grounded and emotional and real. And then you have this character that it's easy to see how it's kind of come into the movie, and how they're looking for anything to make them happy. It's so emotional to watch, but also very lovable. The whole scene with them on top of the tree with Totoro and the score, it's one of my favorite Studio Ghibli moments. Also, this iconic scene with Totoro and the rain and the umbrella and the cat bus. This film has stood the test of time with its themes and what it does explore. It's very effective and my favorite Studio Ghibli film. So there you guys have it. All 24 Studio Ghibli movies ranked worst to best. How would you rank them? Let me know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for more up and coming content like this. My name is Just Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.